I've been watching this world for a long, long time, long enough to see the lines time etches on people's faces, and more importantly, to see the cycles it leaves in markets and trends. If you ask me what I've learned from all those decades of watching the circus, I'll tell you this: human folly never changes. It just puts on a new set of clothes, goes by a different name, but at its core, it's always that same old damn pull of the crowd. I often sit in my office and watch the hustle and bustle outside my window. The people out there, they're all chasing something. Chasing what? Chasing the latest hot topic. Chasing what someone else calls an opportunity. Chasing the illusion of getting rich quick. They're running themselves ragged red in the face, terrified of missing the train to paradise. But my experience tells me that when everyone is scrambling to get on board, that train usually isn't heading to paradise. It's heading right off a cliff. Stupidity is contagious, and it spreads a hell of a lot faster than wisdom. You people love looking at the surface of things. You see a stock price go up. You call it a good company. You see your neighbor buy a new car. You think he's a success. You see everyone talking about some new industry. You assume it's the future. You only see the brilliant flower. But none of you want to bend down and look at the root system that keeps it alive. You only see the brightly lit stage, but nobody bothers to ask how many people are working frantically behind the scenes. How many are left to clean up the mess afterward? When I was a young man, I was fooled by these appearances, too. But I quickly learned a brutal truth. If you always do what the majority of people are doing, you'll get the result the majority gets, which is mediocrity, or worse. My whole life, my wealth, my stability. It's not because I'm so much smarter than anyone else. It's because I've gotten very good at avoiding stupidity. My philosophy has always been about inversion. I never ask, how can I make the most money? I only ask myself one question: how can I avoid losing what I already have? This is the fundamental difference between me and the herd. The herd is chasing fast, more, and big. I'm pursuing durable, fewer mistakes, and long-lasting. They're focused on the play, the sprint. I'm focused on finishing the marathon. Real wealth is built by compounding steadily over a long period of time, not by one or two lucky hits. But you don't like slow. You have a natural aversion to it because slow isn't exciting. It doesn't grab headlines. The slow doesn't make for good dinner party conversation or get you likes on social media. You'd rather listen to some guru who promises to double your money in 3 months than listen to an old man like me tell you the plain truth. The best secret to investing is to not do much of anything, and especially not to do stupid things. The inertia of the crowd, as I see it, stems from two things: fear and laziness. Let's talk about fear. You're afraid of being left out. Humans are social animals. It's wired into our genes from tens of thousands of years ago. If the tribe abandons you, you die. So, when everyone is running east, even if your gut tells you west is safer, your body will instinctively start shuffling east with them. You're not just afraid of losing money. You're afraid of being the only one losing money while everyone else is getting rich. The only one to stand up and say, I think this is wrong, when everyone else agrees it's right. This fear of isolation makes you surrender your ability to think independently. You'd rather be wrong with a million people than be right all by yourself. Let me tell you, when your thinking aligns perfectly with the market, that's precisely when you should be most nervous. Now, for laziness, I'm talking about cognitive laziness. Your brain is a precious resource, and it hates to waste energy on deep, critical thinking. The figure, well, if that many people are doing it, they must know something. I'll just follow along. It's the illusion that the majority must be right. You've outsourced your thinking. You've outsourced it to the media headlines, to the so-called thought leaders, to the gossip you hear at the dinner table. You think you're saving yourself the trouble of thinking. But what you're really doing is handing your fate over to people who are either more confused than you are, frankly, don't give a damn about you. I've never believed in the wisdom of crowds. The crowd is emotional. It's extreme, and it swings wildly between greed and fear. Truth, on the other hand, is always heavy, dull, and takes time to dig up. It's hidden in the thick, boring financial reports that nobody wants to read, and in the cold, dry analysis of a business model. When you're all busy chasing appearances, I ask you, do you see the reality? What is the reality? In the world of investing, the reality isn't that flickering stock chart on the screen. That's just Mr. Market's daily mood report, and most of the time, it's wrong and hysterical. The reality is the intrinsic value of the business. What does it sell? Why do its customers have to buy from it? How wide is its moat? When everyone is running from a company and its stock has cratered, I'll pick up its annual report and, like a detective, start looking to see if its core competitive advantages are still intact. If the core is solid and it's just the market that's panicking, then to me, that's a gift from heaven. You see a stock fall from 10 to 5, you get scared and you sell. Now I see a quality business on sale for half price. I get greedy and I buy. That's the power of thinking backward. It's not some advanced technique. It's just a discipline that goes against human nature. You all talk about how successful Buffett and Munger are. You see the results, but you ignore the process. We have never chased a single trend. We just wait until the tide goes out, revealing the hard, solid rocks that were hidden by the water. And then we quietly walk over and pick them up. I remember a time when everyone was piling into what you called the new economy. The headlines were filled with fancy words, and everyone was talking about disruption and changing the world. They told me my old-fashioned companies that made real, the physical things were obsolete and would be left behind. I just chuckled and asked them, tell me, what is this new company's business model? Where does its cash come from? How exactly is it going to make money? They couldn't answer. All they could say was, it represents the future. The word future is the best camouflage that speculators use to hide their own ignorance and laziness. I saw the appearance, a stock price rocketing upward, people celebrating. I saw the reality. The company had no profits, no moat, and a valuation built on nothing but optimistic guesswork about the future. I chose not to play. That decision, the choice not to chase, was my success. My success isn't about running faster than others. It's about standing on more solid ground. I would rather pass on 9 out of 10 opportunities to seize the one that I can understand, inside and out, the one where I can see the reality. The herd instinct doesn't just plague the stock market. It seeps into every corner of your life. Look at your career choices. Everyone says a safe government job is the ticket. So you claw your way through the competition for a handful of spots without ever asking yourself if that job will actually bring you any fulfillment. Everyone says getting a job at a big tech firm is the definition of success. So you burn the midnight oil, cramming for interviews, and enduring a high-pressure environment, all for a title that sounds good. You let the crowd sweep you away onto a path that looks safe, but might be the most miserable one for you personally. You've set your life's goal as getting the approval of others instead of living a life that's true to yourself. The biggest risk a person can take is to live the life others expect of them. You're planning your life. Are you following someone else's map, or are you drawing your own? Most people choose the former because drawing a map is hard work. It requires independent thought, a real conversation with your inner self, and the courage to admit that what you want might be completely different from what your neighbor wants. When I was younger, people advised me to get into more fashionable, promising industries. I said no. I chose businesses that looked boring, even a bit old-fashioned. Why? Because I could understand their reality. Their products were things people needed. Their competitive advantages were long-lasting, and their management teams were honest and rational. They wouldn't make you rich overnight, but they would compound day after day quietly, just like time itself. You always want a shortcut. This is the biggest misunderstanding of the idea that slow is fast. You think getting to the finish line in the shortest amount of time is what makes you fast. But let me tell you, speed without a solid foundation will only make you fall backward even faster. Imagine building a house. The trend chasers are focused on the fanciest roof and the most dazzling decorations. They want to break ground today and move in tomorrow. They're obsessed with appearances. Me, I'm obsessed with the foundation. I'll spend an enormous amount of time digging, compacting the soil, and making sure my foundation can withstand 100 years of storms. Now, my house might not look as flashy as yours, but when the hurricane comes, your roof gets torn off, and I'm sitting comfortably by my fireplace, sipping my tea. You call this approach conservative. I call it risk management. I told you from the beginning, my philosophy is about avoiding failure. If you try to build a skyscraper without laying a proper foundation, your probability of failure is 100%. The way I see it, all quick successes hide enormous ticking time bombs of risk. So, to overcome this deep-seated herd instinct, you have to fundamentally change the way you think. First, you have to learn to be skeptical. I'm not telling you to be a cynic, but to develop a habit. Whenever you hear an opinion, no matter how popular, no matter who it comes from, you need to put a little question mark next to it in your mind. Ask yourself, what's the logic behind this news? How strong is the evidence? Is it possible there's a completely opposite explanation that everyone is ignoring? You people are too easily swayed by emotional language. A single word, a single label can make you excited or terrified. You forget that emotion is the single greatest enemy in the market. You learn to examine information with a critical eye. You'll find that most of the hot topics and trends simply fall apart under the light of reason. They're just air, packaged beautifully. Second, you must embrace being independent. This is much harder than you think. Thinking for yourself means you will likely have to bear the pressure of being alone. When I've made some of my biggest decisions, I was often surrounded by voices of dissent. When I chose to hold cash during a market frenzy, my peers may have laughed at me for missing out. They said I was too slow, too conservative. But my independence saved me from getting trapped when the market inevitably crashed. Remember, the market's emotions are usually an overreaction, and opportunity is often found in the quietest, most feared corners of the world. You're afraid to be different because you confuse independent thinking with being a contrarian for its own sake. Being a contrarian is for show. It's about appearances. Independent thinking is about seeing the reality and avoiding mistakes. I'm not telling you to deliberately go against the crowd. I'm saying that when your analysis tells you the crowd is wrong, you need to have the courage to stick with your own judgment. That courage comes from confidence in your judgment. And that confidence can only come from deep research and analysis. Don't trust anyone's recommendations, including mine. I'm telling you to go read the boring, original source material that nobody else wants to touch. You won't read a company's annual report or an industry white paper, but you'll happily spend your time watching 3-minute video summaries or scrolling through noisy chat groups. You're like someone who wants to learn to cook by only looking at pictures on a menu, without ever being willing to chop a vegetable or test the heat of the stove. You'll never truly understand the nature of the ingredients, and so you'll never be able to cook a truly great meal. Real insight doesn't come from a quick glance at the surface. It requires you to sit down, shut up, and spend a great deal of time and energy doing the homework. When you truly understand the business logic of a company, the market's short-term fluctuations become nothing more than noise to you. You won't panic just because the stock drops a bit, because you know the underlying value of the business hasn't changed. This is the importance of a long-term perspective. Appearances are fleeting, like ripples on the surface of the water, changing with every gust of wind. The reality is durable, like the bedrock at the bottom of the sea, steady and unmoving. You spend all your energy chasing the ripples. You care about how much you made this month or this quarter. Their vision is trapped in an extremely short time frame. In investing, time is your greatest ally, but you treat it like an enemy, always demanding an immediate payoff. My success didn't come from doing anything particularly brilliant. It came from giving my investments enough time for the power of compounding to do its work for me. Compounding is the eighth wonder of the world, but it only rewards those who are patient and can see reality. The people who chase appearances are always in a hurry to cash out. They make a little money and rush for the exit because they're afraid of losing it. They never get to truly enjoy the long-term rewards of compounding. because their mindset is stuck on the level of short-term speculation. I always say that slow is fast. This isn't just an empty phrase. It's an understanding of the nature of time. When you slowly and solidly build your foundation, when you make just a few fewer mistakes than everyone else each year, and when you stick with it for 10 or 20 years, you'll look up and find you've left the sprinters far, far behind. They ran fast because they weren't carrying anything. They weren't prepared for the long haul. They took off with nothing but the clothes on their back, and as a result, collapsed early in the marathon from lack of supplies. Me, I may look like I'm moving slowly, but that's because I'm carrying the weight of a deep respect for risk and a firm grasp of reality. That weight is what allows me to go the distance. So, young people, the next time you see everyone stampeding in one direction, I want you to stop. Just stop. Give yourself 10 minutes of quiet. Don't turn on the news. Don't listen to anyone else's voice. Just listen to your own. Ask yourself a few hard questions. Why are they running? What are they really chasing? If everyone succeeds, then who pays the price? Is the underlying logic of this frenzy built on solid value creation, or is it just an emotional bubble? If you can't explain what you're chasing to an 8-year-old in 5 minutes using simple, plain language, then my advice to you is to not touch it, because what you're chasing is just an appearance that you don't even understand yourself. The inertia of the crowd is a cancer on society that can never be fully cured. We can't stop people from chasing the circus, but we can choose not to get swept up in it. My advice is simple, and it's boring. Focus on your moat. Focus on your intrinsic value, and focus on avoiding obvious, stupid mistakes. If your goal in life is just to make a little more money than your neighbor, you will eventually be enslaved by your emotions and by the trends. But if your goal is to understand how the world really works, to build a stable, reliable inner world that can't be shaken by outside noise, then you're already on the right path. Don't be afraid of being lonely. The truly successful operators always start their work after the crowd has gone home. They study when the market is quiet. They act when others are fearful. And they remain vigilant when the market is euphoric. Remember my words. The beauty of the flower is an appearance. The depth of the roots is the reality. Chase appearances, and you will be swept away by the current. Understand reality, and you will stand as firm as a mountain. My final piece of advice is this. Find a principle that you trust, and that has been proven by time, and then stick to it like a fanatic. I chose value and the long term. Your choice might be different, but your principles must be based on a deep understanding of reality, not on a blind worship of appearances. When you can do that, you stop being a victim of the market and become an observer of it. Eventually, you become a friend of time. That is the most valuable lesson my entire life has brought me. Don't try to make a fast buck. Slow down, think, observe, and then let time do the work for you. That is the only path to durable success. You are always drawn to the stories of overnight riches, but you fail to see that for every one of those, there are 1,000 stories of overnight ruin. I never play those zero-sum games. I only play the games where, As long as I don't make a major error, time is on my side. In the end, this is all a battle against the weaknesses of human nature. You must learn to control your own greed and fear. This is far harder than mastering any investment technique, because greed and fear are the two engines of the herd instinct. The others are greedy. You follow along because you fear missing out. When others are fearful, you sell because you fear further loss. You are perpetually making the wrong decision at the wrong time. My way of dealing with them isn't to suppress them, but to create distance. I keep my decision-making process as far away from the noise of the market as possible. My investment decisions are almost always made in a quiet room, free of outside influence. Once I've made a decision, unless the fundamental facts change, I don't budge, no matter how much the stock price bounces around. I am never moved by appearances. You're always living up to other people's expectations. You want to look busy, to look productive, to have some new big move to talk about every day. This, too, is an appearance. The real effectiveness isn't about how many things you do in a day. It's about how many right things you do. The best state to be in is to be sitting quietly, reading and thinking. I might go a whole week without making a single trade, without any action that has news value. But in that silence, I have avoided thousands of mistakes that could have ruined me. You call this inactivity. I call it a high form of discipline. Discipline is the most powerful weapon against the pull of the crowd. It demands that you stick to the conclusions of your own independent analysis, even in the face of immense social pressure. I've seen too many brilliant people who had all the knowledge and all the tools, but who were ultimately destroyed by their own emotions. They lost to the emotions of the crowd, to the temptations of the market. This just proves my point. Psychology is far more important than methodology. If you can't control your own mind, no amount of cleverness will save you. You're always looking for the so-called Holy Grail, that one magic formula that will make you rich instantly. I'll tell you, the Holy Grail doesn't exist. And if it did, it wouldn't be some complex mathematical model. It would be the four simple words: independent thought and long-term patience. You always want me to give you a specific stock tip, but all I can give you is a mental framework for seeing reality for yourself. The framework is this. First, always think like a business owner, not a stock speculator. A speculator looks at price fluctuations. An owner looks at future cash flows and competitive strength. Second, always insist on a margin of safety. Only buy when the price you pay is significantly below what you believe the business is worth. This is your final line of defense against failure. Everyone is frantically chasing prices higher. The margin of safety disappears. Third, patience, patience, and more patience. You don't need to make a decision every day. There are many interesting things in life. Don't let the market consume you. Spend your energy on your family, your health, and the accumulation of wisdom. The less you focus on appearances, the more clearly you will see reality. As I say all this, I know that most of you won't listen. You'll think I'm too slow, too boring. You'll run right back to chasing those shiny objects that glitter for a moment and then fade away. But that's okay. I never expect to convince everybody. I only hope that the few of you who are willing to stop, the few of you willing to actually think, can hear my voice. The truth is always a scarce commodity. If the majority of people possessed it, it wouldn't be called truth. So, the next time you feel the impulsive urge to follow the herd, remember this old man's warning. You are not a mindless cell. You have a powerful brain. Use it. Be skeptical. Analyze. Dig deeper. When others are blindly chasing so-called hot assets, you need to ask yourself, what is the core value of this thing to still be around in 10 years? If the answer is fuzzy, then please stay sober, stay quiet, and stay independent. The being different isn't about being a rebel. It's about survival. When everyone is crowded on one side of the boat, your only path to survival is to stand on the other side, or better yet, don't get on that boat in the first place. The tides come in and go out. I've seen the madness of human nature and its eventual return to sanity. What you call a trend, I see as just another rerun of history. The actors are different, but the script is always the same. So put down your list of hot stocks. Pick up a thick annual report or a classic book that has stood the test of time. When you start to focus on the things that are durable, fundamental, and unchanging the reality, you will find that, without even realizing it, you are already walking on the path to true success. It's a slow road and a lonely one, but it is steady and reliable. This is the advice from an old man who has seen through the inertia of the crowd. Think about it. When everyone else is chasing appearances, do you see the reality?